Hey everyone, this is John Puritz. Welcome to the Man Up Already podcast. This show is dedicated to each of us being better in all areas of our lives, mentally, spiritually, physically, and relationally. We want to help you be a better you because when you man up already, the world around you is greatly impacted. Here on the podcast, we don't believe you're an accident. We believe each of us is created for purpose, and this show is dedicated to helping you discover and live out that purpose. Again, welcome to the show, and let's check out another great episode. All right, everyone. Hey, welcome to another episode of the Man Up Already podcast, and as always, super excited to have you here. And we've got another great guest today that we're going to talk about something that has really presented itself in my life. And it's funny how you will meet people and attract people based on the energy that you're putting out. And, something that has become sort of a concern for me, or at my age popped up. No surprise that I get connected to this great person. And we're going to have them on a guest today. So it's going to be a great conversation. I've had on the show my family's experience with pancreatic cancer. I had my sister on here. We're going to have a follow-up with her at some point as to what's going on with my brother-in-law. But, my sister and I went for a heart scan. And what came back for me said, hey, you probably should pay attention to a couple of things. And I'm in the process of that as of this recording. But it was kind of a wake-up call. And then in our family, one of our family members, someone close to them just passed away from a heart attack. And so these things are real. There's some hidden things that need to be addressed. And our guest today is an expert in that area. She has extensive experience working in the ER, especially treating hundreds of heart patients, and decided to focus on helping high performers minimize their risk for heart disease. And I was so fascinated by our conversation. I said, let's do a podcast. I want to get you on here and talk about some things that I think people should pay attention to. So without further ado, please welcome our next guest, Dr. Roxane Langlois. All right, Roxane, thanks for being here. Welcome to the Man Up Already podcast.
Thanks for having me, John. Pleasure to be here.
All right, so I probably butchered your last name. So please, for our audience, give us the correct pronunciation.
Langlois. Roxane Langlois. Yeah, it's French Canadian, so it's normal that you wouldn't,
That so did not come out that way.
All good.
But I'm excited to have you here because I shared in the interview, and something since our last conversation really kind of took place in my personal life. But I think heart health is a big issue. I would say it was not on the forefront of my mind until getting a scan that said, hey, you've got some things to take a look at. So I'm really happy, for you to be here. I'd love to hear your story, or, I've heard it, but, our audience to hear it, and what made you go from, based on, what you've shared, working in the ER to yes, I'm going to do that, but I'm also going to focus on, these are the things I learned and how I really want to help people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, so basically, right from medical school, right from the beginning, I felt that something was a little bit off for me, and that there was something that I found a little bit disempowering about the medical system and the way we went about it with patients. This kind of inequality between two people, the patient who, oh, tell me what's going on with my body, and then the medical staff who is supposed to have all the answers. Whereas I think that each of us individually, we are the expert of our own body. So right from the get-go, I found that there was something a little bit disempowering about the setup and how things were set up. And then throughout medical school, I I was always a big fan of trying to look for alternatives or an approach that's a little bit more holistic and not only dependent on pharma. And what I found is that there's a bias in how we deliver medical care, because the studies are based on pharmaceutical studies. The care that we give is based on that. And there's nothing, I'm not like bashing the pharma industry at all. I think there are wonderful drugs that are useful in emergency cases, but it's the over dependency that is the problem I find in the medical care system, where every single thing, like a lot of tests are kind of designed to make you become a consumer of drugs rather than empowering you to look at what can you do different in your life and how can you get back into balance, which is really the real essence of medicine and being a healer. And what I signed up for when I, the Hippocrates, anyways, the oath
Hippocratic oath, right?
Hippocratic oath. Thank you. So there was, so that's kind of my philosophy, that I want to help people take their power back in terms of health. And I quickly realized that in the general population, that not everyone is interested. And this is a little bit sad to say, but it's the truth. Not everyone is interested in taking their power back in terms of healthcare. Not everyone is interested in taking responsibility for their health. And that was a little bit hard for me to realize, but it's really a truth, and you have to face it. Most of the population that comes to my emergency is not interested or not ready or not conscious enough to take full responsibility and take care of their heart health or their health in general. So that was a bit hard, but then through my own personal journey, I started getting some coaching for my life, and I found the approach so interesting and so valuable to my medical practice. I was able to kind of guinea pig test out these coaching practices and techniques on my patients. And what I found was that people who were high performers, so these are people who are kind of like you and me, who are able to focus, have the ability to put their discipline towards goals that are worthy and take consistent actions. Not perfect, but people who are able to use that laser focus to go in a certain direction and take responsibility. That portion of the population responded extremely, extremely, extremely well to my coaching techniques. And I was able to get results that I had never seen before. So that was really exciting for me to discover. And then and then in the beginning of my medical practice, I'm a family doctor, but I exclusively do, for now, emergency medicine in rural areas. And so I get to receive people when they get a heart attack. And then I transfer them to the city, or I do thrombolysis, or, I'm the one who directly receives them. And at the beginning, it was kind of fun, because you're there in such a critical moment. You can literally save someone's life, really, when they come in for a heart attack. So that was kind of, exciting. It's like the emergency. I can't lie. It's like the emergency doctor's dream to, save lives and be a hero. It's exciting stuff. But after, maybe, I don't know, 10 people who came into my ER with heart attacks, I realized, I thought, I should have seen this guy like 3 years ago. And that's when I would have really had power to actually change things and possibly change the course of the events. And that's when I was also following up with the patients in rural areas. We do everything. So I did the follow-ups, and I found that these guys were coming back from the cath labs and the cities and the cardiologists and the stents. I was feeling like they were completely distraught, and it's such a huge traumatic experience. And the follow-up, the medical follow-up is excellent. That's standardized almost anywhere in the world, super standardized, excellent medical follow-up. But the emotional part of it was really, really difficult. And the guys, I could tell this was a huge, 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 huge thing for them. And the emotional side was not addressed. And what got me into coaching high performing men was that men in general have a little bit more trouble expressing emotions. And heart health and having a heart attack is such a huge traumatic experience. It's so emotionally charged. Like, even if someone has not had a heart attack, even in movies we see this, it's like in society we have all these beliefs and these fears around having a heart attack. So it's really ingrained in us. And so for a man to have a heart attack and to have had trouble for years, possibly decades, to express emotions, and now you go through this life-threatening event and you don't have the support to express your emotions, like, that is really not fun for people to be living. And I was noticing this lack in the medical system. Even with great medical follow-up, the emotional follow-up was not good. And also it's kind of like, okay, what now, right? It's not just about statins and eating vegetables. Now it's, how are we going to empower you to modify your beliefs and go in the direction of getting more back into balance? So that's where the idea came for coaching high performing men. And now I actually coach men. I actually coach a lot of guys who have not had any heart events, which is super surprising to me, but absolutely lovely. Like, that's exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to do a lot more prevention than treatment. So it's really fun. I get to work with people who are super interesting and super focused and have great projects and plans. And now they want to apply this focus and this discipline and this vision to their health. So yeah.
Wow. Love all of that. Okay, so let's start pre and unfortunately post. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're working with those that have not had an event, and let me preface this just where I'm coming from. I can so relate to the emotional, reaction to the event. I mean, I got a scan, right? Like, it was just enough for a scan to come back and go, you probably need to take a look at that, and there was an emotional process or an emotional reaction, because we as men do so much, right? We provide, we protect, we're thinking about so many different things, that when that came back, it was, oh shit, like that's the first reaction. You know what I mean? Like, I use some other words as well, but what the F do I do now, kind of thing? How am I going to have to modify? How does that get interpreted from a strength standpoint, from how I show up into the world? I'm sure you experience that. So it's interesting. I've also literally in the last 2 weeks, a guy that I know who's 1 year older than me went out for a bike ride and had a heart attack and didn't come back.
Oh, wow. I'm so sorry to hear that.
Yeah. And, and so you process that, like, there's this, do I have a ticking time bomb inside of me? Right. Which I'm sure is common in your work. So there's a lot of emotions that go into this. So let's start when you're working with people who have not had an experience. What are some things that you're teaching to help them? Because I think it's great for the audience to say, how can I apply this into, into what I'm doing right now?
Yeah. So let's start with the emotions, because that's a big pillar of my work. And I want to address the emotions specifically for men in this context, because as you said, men have a lot on their shoulders these days, and just in general, providing, and also anyone who's a high performer is a leader. So what that entails, that you have to look strong, you have to look like you're leading, and you have to sometimes have a lot of self-restraint in your emotions so that your team has confidence in you. It's kind of like you can't show any weakness at the risk of having people lose confidence in you. And I'm familiar with this. I'm not a man, obviously, but I'm familiar with this energy because of my role in the ER as a doctor. If you show any kind of weakness or hesitation, or you're not sure of something, it might be human, but you're going to lose the trust of your team. If you look strong, no matter what goes on, it inspires the team to go forth and to to have better teamwork, right? It's okay to have emotions and process them after, but in a crisis, you have to look strong. So that self-restraint of emotions is something that men really struggle with, I believe, especially in leaders. And so when you have something that might say, hey, you're not that, you're okay, this is like your little point of weakness, this is the vulnerability you have. As leaders, we're not so used to this feeling of feeling vulnerable, right? It's like a new thing, and how do we integrate it into our lives? And I think that this is really a great opportunity to get in touch with our emotions and to get in touch with this side of feeling more vulnerable and starting to process this. So getting in touch with our emotions and I don't want to say de-dramatize, but that's kind of what it is, going one step at a time. And so fear is like the lowest level of emotion, right? And how do we get out of fear and powerlessness? Because that's where we don't want to be. So how do we go up? Well, the next emotion might be rage. So getting really, really angry that we have this problem, or sadness, getting sad that we have this problem. And what happens in society whenever you express rage or sadness as a man, it's discouraged. Like, especially I find like sadness has always been discouraged, but rage is like shamed, like, oh, you need anger management issues. No, actually, rage is way better than feeling powerless about this problem. So you need to feel rage. Okay, it needs to be in a, you can't punch someone in the face. Like if the doctor gives you a scan and you punch them in the face, it's not gonna fly. But you need to express it in a socially acceptable manner, in a manner that's appropriate to you, that feels comfortable. But you need to go through this kind of emotional scale where from powerlessness, from fear, you go up to maybe sadness or frustration. And then from frustration, you're feeling a different kind of energy about this. You might say, okay, so let's say in your case with your scan. So the first thing you get is like kind of a panic feeling inside, like, whoa, or like denial, or a feeling of like, oh shit, what am I, like, I don't even want to look at this, ostrich in the sand, And then you kind of sleep on it and you take the hit, because you have to feel the emotion for it to heal, for it to move. You have to let it move through you for it to evolve into something better, more digestible. So once you take the hit of this feeling of powerlessness and you accept it and you feel it in your body, then you'll go to maybe sadness, and then you might feel the sadness, and then you let that take the hit from that, and then maybe you'll go to frustration or rage, and then again you process that feeling, and this will help you as you go up into the emotions. As you feel them, you let the energy move through you, and then you find new solutions. You have access to different thoughts. The thoughts that you have access to when you're feeling powerless and panicking are completely different than when you feel frustrated. And then from frustration, we can when we become, so one of the pillars of my technique is emotions, and another pillar is slowing down the mind to become more aware of our thoughts, so that we can pick and choose which thoughts we are giving our energy to. So, because whatever you focus on grows. Right. So then when you're in the frustration mode, you can identify those thoughts, and the more you go up in those emotions, the better access thoughts you'll have. So someone who is feeling, so there's frustration, then maybe there's boredom, then there's maybe hopefulness, optimism, empowerment on top. So when you go up that emotional scales by processing those emotions and acting upon whatever thoughts you have access to, then in hopefulness, you'll have different ideas about what to do about this problem. So for your heart, you'll have ideas like, oh, I'm making this up, but oh, maybe I'll start walking, or I'll talk to this friend. I think that maybe they'll help me feel more empowered about this. Whereas when you're panicking, you're like, oh shit, what supplements do I take? What doctor do I need to like go to Mexico to get medical treatment? You know what I mean? Like it's like you have access to different thoughts. So so to summarize, what I would say, like the gist of my approach is, in high performers, the mind is going very, very fast. It's like a constant, very fast activity in the mind. So the first step is to calm down the nervous system, to regulate the nervous system, and to have a way of observing the thoughts. Once we're aware and we're able to observe the thoughts, we're able to exercise the choice of which thought we give more attention, more focus, more energy to. And then these thoughts compound and grow. And that is something that will influence our actions. And then once we're in a better state, the actions that we'll take are more aligned with our thoughts and our beliefs, making execution way more effortless. So acting, if a doctor tells you need to exercise and you need to take a statin, you can take the same actions, but from a disempowered state, your actions will get you less far and you'll have less results, even if you do the same actions. Whereas someone who feels more empowered will do the same action and get further, and then probably will get even better ideas and be like, oh, I'm going to try this. I'm going to try this. So I hope that makes sense.
It does. It does. I want to just a couple of things.
Yeah.
First is, what is a statin?
I've heard the term, sorry,
but I don't know what that
statin is it's a medication to lower cholesterol. So it's pretty standard in heart health. A lot of people take it. If anyone who's had a heart attack will probably know what it is. That's like the category name. I'm not sure exactly all the names in the US, but Lipitor, Crestor would be, yeah, stuff like that. Mm-hmm.
The other thing is, when you were talking about leadership, I think what a lot of people don't realize when it comes to men, especially high performers, you're not just leading at work. There are three pillars to right. You're leading at work, but you're leading at home, and you're leading at home as husband if you're married, and two, as father if you have kids. And all three do not like to see you weak.
Yes.
And
which is a shame.
It's just that culturally needs to change, in my opinion, right? Because there's this expectation on men that you need to project strength, right? And that men, we're not strong all the time.
Yeah.
If we have fears of, right? Like, I mean, gosh, I've lost friends who have had heart attacks, and I know they're stressed, and they never felt like they could show, right, how that was affecting them, for them to be seen as weak, right, in a relationship, right? That's then interpreted as a safety issue. You know what I mean? Like, it's so the pressure of that.
Yes. Yeah.
And it can be unspoken, but it's underneath and not dealt with.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I get shivers at this because it's such a shame that people would keep all this inside. And the pressure buildup is just so uncomfortable. And it's only, for me, it only seems logical that this would lead to dis-ease, this built up of pressure. There's no ease in that. It's very uncomfortable. And the body, you can't be in alignment when you have this much pressure that's not dealt with. And I think that, things are changing slowly. And I think that there is this innate desire for the masculine to want to lead. But I think that the healthy masculine energy is someone who leads, but is able to have moments of not being perfect all the time. So I'll give you an example of a client that I have. This is like a leader of large organizations. And, he has it from the exterior. He looks like freaking bulletproof. This guy he just looks so bulletproof. And he's super fit. He's done marathons. He works out every day in the gym. Like, just like big projects. He knows, all the important people in the, and he just really looks bulletproof. And he came to me and he said, listen, I'm healthy. He eats so perfectly, like it would make a nutritionist blush, because he's so disciplined. He can eat tuna out of a can if he has to. Like, it's so ridiculously disciplined. Whenever he eats Nutella toast, I'm like, yay, good job, you did it. It's like he can't deviate from being so structured and so disciplined. So he eats perfectly. He's super in shape. He has no health problems, but he did get like a scan of his carotid arteries. Anyways, which showed nothing really scary, but he was terrified of this. And he had only one little habit that was going wrong. He slept well. Everything else was good. He didn't feel the stress, but he had stress. He had pressure. He came to me and he said, listen, I'm drinking. I'm not drinking that much, but my father died from a heart-related issue and was an alcoholic, and it doesn't affect my work. I'm still able to be extremely functional. I'm extremely performant in my work, but I know that this drinking issue is heading me in the wrong direction, and I want to change this. And so to come back to like being a leader in the family, we went, we started de-dramatizing this drinking thing, and part of my philosophy is I never tell someone what to do. But we went in and we're like, why are we drinking? What are the feelings associated with this? And then obviously what the problem was is he had so much pressure. He needed to ease off the tension by taking a drink. That was his way of processing it. Even with all the sports and everything, the healthy habits, he still had pressure to release. And so when he figured that out, it was so easy to drop the habit gradually. And now he takes a drink or two once in a while, and it's not even an issue anymore. But the most interesting thing that happened with this client is that he realized that as the leader of the family, him drinking, even though he was never drunk in front of his family, but that regular drinking was affecting the health of his family. His wife, whenever he opened a bottle of wine, his wife was also drinking, and a considerable amount. And when he realized this, he's like, no, I want to show the right way of my family. I want to lead by example. And so, but it didn't come from a place of, I always have to look strong. It came from a place of, okay, I'm back into balance, and now I want to show the way for my family so that I can take better care of them. It didn't come from a place of pressure. It came from a place of empowerment, from a place of feeling good. And so I think that this innate desire to lead in men is a good thing, but it has to come from a place of having your needs and your needs met first. You need to, because what leaders do is they prioritize everybody else's needs first, and then they're feeling kind of empty and flat. So
right.
Yeah.
No, that was very well put. So if the before is kind of what you were talking about, and the stages, and I think a lot of men do feel like we're talking about, right, that there's no rest from it, and there needs to be rest from it.
Mm-hmm. Rest from what?
From the pressure, meaning,
yes.
right?
Yes.
You've got to be able to articulate, like you said, you've got to have your needs met. Now, needs are not being needy,
no,
right?
Of course
but
not.
we're human beings, right? The same things that women struggle with, men struggle with, and vice versa, right? As human beings. Now, there are innately different things, but being able to express, have that received, right, without judgment, or as I say, held to be used at a later date, right? That is, there's got to be safe places to be able to offload some of this, right? And look, somebody once said, your home has to be a place of peace. It can't be, another battle or another pose or another place to, where you've got to hide from. So I think all of that does contribute to the pressure that leads to heart issues. Now let's talk post, right? Because, okay, this event happened and you had offered or shared that there are definitely things that you help people do after the event.
Yeah. So after the event, so here's one thing to maybe clarify. My coaching method and techniques are completely non-medical. So these are, first of all, because I think that's what works best. And second of all, because I'm tired of prescribing statins or I'm tired of adjusting medication. And I don't think that this is where our power lies for better heart health. So I deal with clients who already have a great medical follow-up and who are already stable. So that's like kind of you have to be stable. Like if you're in the ICU, I can't, like, it's not time for coaching,
Sure.
it's time for
Right.
ICU, right?
Right. I get that.
So this is, once someone has completely recovered, and it's really nice because actually a lot of cases in many cases there are no sequels, especially high performers. Sometimes these people are quite fit, quite resilient, quite they took care of themselves, so this shows up in the aftermath. So I deal with people who have pretty much no sequels and are completely medically stable. And honestly, it's the same approach before and after. We deal with fears, we deal with emotions, and we find ways to release tension and release emotions bit by bit in a way that feels comfortable, in a way that feels gradual. And it's the same pillars: the resetting, the regulating of the nervous system, looking at lifestyle habits, looking at your environment, looking at your thoughts. What thoughts are you putting energy towards? And then once I understand really, really well how the person thinks, so it's really personalized. Like I really know what this guy is eating for breakfast. I know his dog's name. I know I know everything. We're voice noting the whole time, in the first week. So I really get to understand how the person thinks. And I think that that's where I can really help, where I really understand how the person thinks, the thoughts, the beliefs, the weaknesses, the strengths, and then I can adjust the program to what this person needs. But it's the same thing before or after. There's the same fears are there. It's just that after an event, sometimes people are more open to receiving a solution because
Sure.
they're shaken up by the event. And my goal is I would much prefer to see people before than after. But sometimes the person does not open up to solutions if there's no event. Like a lot of guys have told me a heart attack was the best thing that happened to me, or else I would have never, ever, ever stopped. Like this was the wall I hit to wake up and get my priorities straight. And I mean, I think that's like a big, scary wall to hit I don't think that you need to hit. Like if people are watching this and they're interested in the subject, I think that this is an avoidable wall. If you pay attention, you can maneuver around a wall. It's like, because the majority of the population is going very slow. You don't really need to pay that much attention if you're going 5 miles an hour. But if you're going 150 miles an hour, you really need to pay attention where you're going. And that's what high performers are doing. They're going really fast. So it's like everything is accelerated. If there's something off, you veer off much faster. And you need to pay more attention. So I think this is a preventable problem with more awareness.
I love that. It's so true, right? I mean, all right, so let's pick that up and let's run with that. What are your top 5 to 10 preventative things?
Well, okay. So first thing, of course, there's some general advice that, you could find on YouTube or ChatGPT, but I think that you really have to become aware of what your thoughts and your beliefs are personally. Because, for example, in diet, so I have some clients who are vegetarian and are extremely healthy. I have some clients who are whatever, Mediterranean diet. Some people eat carnivore and do really well on that. So I can't really tell you, hey, you need to do this specifically. You need to eat this specifically. You need to figure out what your beliefs, what your preferences, and then you need to experiment. How do you feel when you're doing a certain thing? You need to develop that self-awareness and that mind-body connection, which really starts with the first step is regulating the nervous system, calming the nervous system down so that you become aware of what's going on in your body. When do you feel that tension? When do you feel not at ease? Dis-ease, not at ease. It's the same thing. It's just an earlier signal. When you have a dis-ease, it's like a full-blown manifestation of that discomfort that you were probably not paying attention to. So developing that mind-body connection through self-awareness, breathing exercises, anything that puts you into alignment, into a state of flow where you're feeling good and you're getting those good ideas. Like, we've all had these experiences. For some people, it's walking in nature. For some people, it's whatever, kayaking. For some people, it's biking, where you get that, often it's with movement, where you get that flow of, you get good ideas and it's like time kind of stops. Getting to that state, and that's where your good ideas are going to come from for better health and to get aligned and to develop that mind-body connection of understanding when you feel tight in your shoulders. Where does that come from? How can I release that pressure valve? So I would say the first thing, regulating the nervous system, then cultivating and reinforcing that mind-body connection. And those would be like the two main things. And then of course there's a lot of things, but it really comes down to, I don't want to be the one telling you what to do. I want it to come from you. You need to do that introspection. You need to take the time. You need to develop that awareness of what you should be doing. So it's like the other day I posted about supplements, because I get asked like, oh, what supplements should I take? And then I said, well, supplements is kind of like the fine tuning at the end. It's like you're having fun optimizing things, but you need to have the foundation in place. And I don't want to tell you what supplements to take. And then I said, okay, my favorite one is omega-3. So, but the point is, I want people to take their power back, and the power doesn't come from the information. It comes more from the introspection. So of course, movement, eating whole foods, organic if you can, having outlets, social, improving your social network and spending time with people that feel good, laughing, sleep, quality sleep, absolutely vital for good heart health, for sure. So optimizing your sleep, optimizing your environment. Do you live in an area that has clean air? Do you drink good quality, pure water that comes, ideally spring water or artesian well water? And how is your mood? How do you wake up? In the morning, are you feeling moody and irritable, or are you feeling like, yay, another day? Paying attention to stuff like that, of course, is super important. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but
no, it really does. I mean, it's things that I have learned as of late. I love what you talked about with the pressure valve. I love information versus introspection. You hear there's a million different diets, and there's a million different pills and all that other stuff. But what works, like you said, for you? What are you going to wake up happy to do because it fits into your, and that's not an easy process, right? It takes time, takes a lot of trial and right. I think I've gotten my diet to, what I like and how it's going to be prepared to be able, I am the guy that can eat tuna right out of the can. Versus, with a shit ton of mayonnaise and, masking it. No, but that's something that I've come to enjoy. So I think you've got to find that rhythm. What's the workout rhythm? The way you're going to work out, it's proof that I love what you said. It typically involves movement. Well, there's a reason, right? It gets your dopamine going. It gets everything, flowing through your body. You get to think better, etc. You've got to find those habits, if you will, and then start stacking them. But it's unique to every individual. That's why I have you on here, is because that's so vital. It's why I love having coaches on here, because you need a coach, right? Like, you're just not going to figure it out on your own. And if you are, it's going to take way longer than having a guru with you who's going to be able to guide you to get to that place faster.
Yeah, I mean, of course, I agree. I think that having a coach can be a really good way to get where you want to be. However, I do think that some people can do it by themselves, but as you said, it's sometimes it's nice to have a shortcut and just to be guided and accompanied. Yeah, so yeah, completely agree.
Let me share just to piggyback on that. When I bought my first house, I was 28 years old and I knew nothing about home improvement. Nothing. Okay.
Sounds
And
like me.
but
God.
I couldn't, I was a teacher at the time. I couldn't afford to hire people. So I had a friend who was a contractor. I paid him $500 and I spent one day with him. One day, all day. And what he taught me in that day, I mean, was the catalyst to I love home improvement. I know a lot about home improvement, and even before
Just
the
come
internet,
over to
you
my
could
house, John,
right,
anytime.
right. But that hiring and paying for that education of that one day laid the foundation for everything that came after it. And I would say my career in financial services came from having a mentor and a guide. So sometimes hiring a coach is an investment into a period of time where you're going to learn some things that you don't know. And I firmly believe that there always comes on that road to success where everything you know, which has shaped who you are, is not enough to get you to the next level. You need new thoughts, you need new information, you need new ideas. And that's only going to come from, and you could even go try to figure it out on your own, but sometimes you don't even know where to look. And that person can come in and literally guide you for, sometimes it could be, in my case, a day, sometimes it could be for years. But I think it's an investment into laying a foundation that can change your life, and we're talking about heart health. How long do you want to wait, right, before it's a 3 alarm fire that you've now got to respond to, versus hiring that person could have prevented that from happening? And I love what you said, right? You can
Yeah.
navigate around the wall versus
Yeah.
running into it.
And I think that, there's a time and place for a coach, because yes, I think someone who is an expert can absolutely bring you to the next level. But I think a key thing here is the person has to be really ready. And that's when the coaching is really, really effective. When the person has done a bit of this, has started the work and try to figure things out. And then they're like, okay, no, I need expert guidance. I want the not necessarily shortcuts, but you know what I mean? Like ways to get there that are already proven to be efficient. So I think expert guidance can take you there, but it needs to be for the right person, and the person needs to be ready. Because I tell my patients in ER the same things that I tell people in my coaching sessions. They pay a lot of money to be with me, and it doesn't have the same effect because they're not ready. They're not invested. They're not ready to hear. They're not mentally prepared to go to the next step. So being mentally prepared is half the equation. I think the expert guidance is half the solution. And then also the willingness and the readiness of the person to jump in with 2 feet is also part of the, what makes it really work. But, with high performers, that's what's really nice. They're kind of all or nothing people. When they're ready, they really go, and it's you see good results fast, and it's very satisfying.
Well, you started, first off, right? It's very true. When the teacher appears when the student is ready, right?
Yeah.
But you started this whole conversation on taking responsibility.
Yeah.
And it's only right. Change happens when you finally take responsibility.
Yeah, and it's not like, because for me personally, I'm very hard-headed. I'm very, I kind of always think I'm right. Hate to admit it, but that's kind of how I am. And when someone would tell me you need to take responsibility, a huge wall would just build. I would just be like, F you, I don't want to hear it. It's hard to hear that when you're not ready. And so I think you kind of, yes, of course, taking responsibility is a must. You have to take responsibility of your life. But I think responsibility has a bit of a negative connotation. I prefer the word allowing yourself to become self-empowered. You have the power over your life. You have the power over your destiny. You have the power over your thoughts, over your body, over your emotions, and you can exercise that power. How much more exciting is that perspective rather than you need to take responsibility?
Right,
Yeah, it's
right.
like
Yeah, I love
it
that.
feels
It
way
is very.
better.
I love that.
And
Yeah,
it is the real truth. Like self-empowerment is the way to good health. It's the way to agency. It's the way to having agency over your body, your thoughts, your health, your emotions, your future. So it, easing into that responsibility with empowerment is, I think, maybe a way that I prefer saying it, but I completely agree. Like no one else is going to do it for you. But when you realize that, it is very empowering to realize that you hold the power. And it's not a doctor, it's not a test, it's not your genetics, it's not life circumstances, it's not what's happened to you in the past. You can start now to go into more self-empowerment.
love it. I love it. What an intriguing conversation. I knew it would be. I knew you would have a lot to offer, and I encourage people to follow you and engage with you. So what's the best way for them to do that?
So the best way to engage with me is on LinkedIn. I am there all the time, every day. So my boyfriend jokes, if I don't know where you are, I'll just send you a message on LinkedIn. So
That's great.
It's true because that's where, I I think it's like the funnest platform. Anyway, so you can connect with me on LinkedIn. I'd be happy to connect with you. I post content to help people stay inspired about their heart health almost every single day. And just tell me I saw you on the Man Up Already podcast, and I'd be happy to connect. I
Love
also
it.
have a bunch of masterclasses. You can sign up to my newsletter. I share free masterclasses a few times a year, maybe a few times a month, even sometimes. So yeah, that's the easiest way to get to me.
Awesome. Well, again, what a great combo. Thank you for your expertise and just what you've shared today. It's important, and I encourage people to really connect with you, engage in conversation. You never know. I mean, look, you and I connected on LinkedIn,
Yeah, of
and
course.
here we are, and I've learned so much from just knowing you. So thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure, John. I'm so happy to be here, and I hope that this inspires people to take care of their hearts and take their power back, and yeah, continue to take care of themselves better.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
All right, take care. Bye.